Fast X is meant to be either the first of a two-part finale or the beginning of a series-ending trilogy. The original plan was for 2 movies, but according to Vin Diesel and a lot of the cast, there might still be a little more fuel left in the tank for this long-lasting series. Having seen Fast X, the 2-movie plan makes sense, but a trilogy feels like a bridge too far as, while fun, Fast X is way too thinly plotted to serve as the first film in a trilogy. While no one can doubt that this is an action-packed thrill ride, which thankfully improves upon the mostly disliked F9, like most films that are set up as the first half of a longer story, it's never fully satisfying on its own the way some of the better installments of the series are. One such entry is Fast 5, which for many remains the gold standard. The premise for Fast X hinges on that movie's events, with it centering around Jason Momoa's Dante, the psychopathic son of that movie's main bad guy, Hernan Reyes. Seeking revenge on Dom for the infamous vault heist, he's bent on ripping apart his family, with his main goal being to take Dom's son, Brian. Given the personal stakes between the two men, it's no surprise that virtually the entire supporting cast is sidelined. Sure, it's setting up a finale where everyone presumably will get their chance to shine, but the series has always been at its best when it works as an ensemble. This time, Vin Diesel has to essentially carry the film himself, and the result is mixed. One thing the film does have going for it is Jason Momoa. Clearly relishing the chance to play a bad guy and choose some scenery, he's easily the best villain the series has ever had. He's certainly the most evil, with him gleefully leaving behind a trail of bodies. The only problem with this is that Dante, who's supposed to have been wiped out financially by the Fast 5 heist, somehow has nearly godlike powers, with unlimited resources at his disposal, while also being a genius that's always supposed to be one step ahead of the Fast family, who, especially since the 5th film, have been set up as perhaps the world's most skilled squad. I mean, they're so smart they were able to improvise a rocket ship to space, yet they can't outwit one psychopath?
I don't know if you've noticed or not, but this whole operation is band-aids and duct tape.
Man, this is insane.
No matter, suspension of disbelief has always been the most important thing about these movies, and if you find yourself saying how too often, well, it's not doing its job, is it? Director Louis Letterier does a good job filling in for Justin Lin, who departed the film pretty early in its shoot. Letterier has a long history in action flicks, and he keeps the pace pretty propulsive, despite the film running a pretty lengthy 140 minutes. You'll never be bored, and he really does know how to keep things moving. Again, though, my big problem with the film is that too much of the cast is left with nothing to do. A lot of the running time is centered around Dom on his own trying to figure out how to stop Dante, and he's separated from the whole gang for virtually all of the film. This is apart from one early scene where they all share a couple of Coronas at a backyard barbecue. Dom is pretty much on his own here. Of the gang, Letty, once again played by Michelle Rodriguez, is being set up perhaps for the biggest role in the next film, with her on a mission of her own that puts her together with Charlize Theron's Cypher, who continues the series' funny recurring motif where the bad guys become allies when a worse threat emerges, no matter how evil they were in their respective films. The two of them have the movie's best action scene, where they have a pretty nifty hand-to-hand fight that had the audience I saw this with cheering. However, Tyrese as Roman, along with Ludacris as Tej, Sung Kang as Han, and Natalie Emmanuel as Ramsey have shockingly little to do, as they spend most of the film on the run trying to find Dom. Jordana Brewster and Jason Statham have even smaller roles, with them virtually only contributing cameos, although at least Statham's Deckard is clearly just being set up for the next movie. Only John Cena gets a substantial part, with his Jacob no longer the baddie he was last time, with heroic, doting uncle to young Brian. Speaking of the other Brian, famously played by the late Paul Walker, he's still supposed to be alive in the Fast saga, but they need to do something to address why he's completely out of the action. Really, they should have had him killed off, as it makes no sense narratively that the former hero of the series would basically, go out on his own and not do anything anytime his Fast family is threatened, especially with his nephew, who's his namesake, in constant mortal danger. I'm not saying we need a CGI Paul Walker riding to the rescue, but maybe it's time to give the character some kind of dignified exit. It's weird that they all keep referring to him as being around, although I suppose that might somehow bring him back in the next one if the technology is good enough, which I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or not. Again, though, that's the issue with the movie. So much of it is just a setup for the next bigger and better installment. They're trying hard to be Avengers Infinity War here, but that movie was still satisfying in its own right, whereas Fast X isn't really. Some of the new cast members, such as Brie Larson and Alan Ritchson, are stuck with embarrassingly thin roles. Larson in particular is wasted in a part that serves as little more than set up for Kurt Russell's Mr. Nobody to presumably return in the next film. The movie ends with a bunch of teases that are supposed to pump the audience up for the next one, but as the credits roll, one can't help but feel as though this movie was just one big long tease. So I give it a rather middling 6 out of 10. I was still entertained by it, but it's definitely not one of the better installments.